Over the weekend, KDA Cup has been in full swing, and there have been some incredibly strong performances and quite some interesting games that have been occurring throughout the course of the Cup. On day one, Robovan actually was the top performer, and in today's video, we're actually going to be going over one of his games that he played during day one, where he played a very interesting approach for Jax reroll, which is it's a line that I feel like a lot of people are aware of, but they sort of take the line and they play it very linearly. And in today's video, I really wanted to focus on this game in particular because yeah, it's Jax reroll, and yeah, like people look at Jax reroll and they're like, oh, like, you know, it's Jax, you just slow roll at 6 and then you hit and then you just play the jazz or whatever Masha variation and then you just win out. But I think Robovan did a very good job forcing the comp when the game wasn't letting him. So I think this is a really cool learning opportunity for people who want to try and force specific comps from specific angles when it seems like the comp won't allow it or the game won't allow it. So let's just start talking about it. So first off, already inside of the Ornn Artifact Anvil, and I apologize by the way, there's no audio. Unfortunately, this guy's VOD has 0 audio from game audio, so there's nothing else I can really do about it. But we are given a Heartsteel start, and so far it's already looking pretty promising. Heartsteel in general right now, very strong, keeps 80 flex very open, but we do have the Rod and the Spark already available on our bench here. But from this point on, we are still sort of leaning around like AP something. We do slam open the Anvil, we do hit the Zanyas, and we are already committing to Jax. We already typed it into the chat, you can't see it because my camera is covering it, and we are basically committing to Jax already at 1-4, which is super early. You might notice he also popped the Anvil very early. He actually popped it before seeing his augments. This is something that a lot of players are doing a lot more recently, especially with Ornn Anvils, because a lot of the Ornn items are very great at giving you direction and specific directionality towards like X comp or Y comp, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, we did a whole meta-analysis in the last video, so you can go check that out. We're talking about Collector, Zanyas, Hull Crusher, whatever, like whatever items give you direction. So anyways, 2-1 augments, bulk, stationary support, and Pandora's items. If you are forcing a comp, Pandora's items is usually the way to go. Pandora's, if you don't remember from set 9, really great at forcing a lot of comps. But in this scenario, we are actually going to be taking stationary because our items are already looking pretty decent and pretty solid, honestly, for Jax. We already have a Rod for half a JG and a potential Hodge coming down the line. But that is going to be the board that we're going to be playing around, and everything else is just going to be utilities. So things like Sunfire, things like Spark, yada. So we do actually send the Spark here already. We are like fully committed into Jax here. This is tourney, by the way. So compared to your solo queue games where you might feel like, hey, like I called Jax, I have a really good spot for Jax, it's very clearly obvious I'm going to play Jax. Sometimes people still contest you. But in tourney, people are very cautious, and you see a lot of the times players are actually typing in chat what they decide to plan on playing because they don't want to be, you know, dealing with people who are going to like pivot into their comp. You might also notice we did not level to 4 here because our board is particularly very weak. We are looking for that 1 Cassante to try to get that 3 Heartsteel going, or maybe even Aphelios, but unfortunately we have missed. We are making 10, and this is sort of the standard play. Right in this spot, a lot of people so far are probably watching this. I'm going to put it at 4 XP, by the way, not much to talk about, but a lot of people are probably looking at this early stage too, and they're thinking like, so far, like this is what I would probably do. It's not a lot of too much thinking. Maybe the Spark Slam is something you wouldn't really consider, but overall, this is not something that's like mind-blowing by any means, right? So far, a lot of the game plan is, again, we roll at level 6, we slow roll, try to find the Jax, the headliner, and yada, and then we just try to play around the Jax headliner. But again, Robovan takes the game very differently in a different approach, so hopefully we'll get to see that very soon. We do have an open belt here, but that doesn't really do much in terms of determining what we want to get off the carousel. We can do, again, we really want these Jax items ASAP, so things like JG, things like Hodge, so Rod, Tier, in this case, it's probably Quick Glove or Tier, both are fine. Quick Glove is actually slightly better in this scenario because we do want 2 Quick Gloves. 1 Tier, 1 Rod is sufficient. We don't need any more. So that is the correct decision from the spot. We do have the Seraphine chosen in our shop here as well. This is something that we could definitely consider, but it's probably not the best choice at the current moment, only because like there's no real reason that we want to play the Seraphine on our board. It's very expensive, and sure, even though it is our strongest board, we are on a 1 loss. It's not like we're trying to preserve a streak by any means. So keeping it in the shop, not picking it up makes total sense. Again, we are trying to just lose streak as much as we can here, but there are some open forwarders in the lobby, so we are trying to preserve HP but trying to lose, hopefully securing a 3 loss. I actually don't remember if he actually secures the 3 loss or not. I have seen this VOD before, but I skipped around quite a bit while I search for VODs, so I don't actually remember what ends up happening here. But TK2, pretty solid board to lose streak with. It's actually pretty pretty good. The only issue is that, again, we just somehow got the Yone and the set from so early on, and then we just never saw a Cassandre or an Aphelios, so we haven't been able to play Heartsteel. Heartsteel, again, really strong in the current meta. It basically opens up 80 flex for you, but it also just pumps resources onto your board, which is super, super nice to have. Easily the most OP, if not the best trait in the current set. And on top of that, it doesn't help that they're buffing the shit out of it in the next patch, which I am not really sure why they're doing that, but I guess they are. We do find the Cassandre in here, so we are able to get the 3 Heartsteel in. This board is looking a little suspicious for beating Krugs, but I guess Robovan is a better player than me, because I would be definitely sweating a little bit from here, but seems to be good enough. Seems like we also sold the Gnar as well, which is a little awkward, but it's fine. We got another quick love, which is great. We have JG Hodge components, which is super nice. Get the gold. We got a bow. Bow is a little awkward. We do have Nashers, but it's not like it does anything for us here. And just a little extra money here. We see our first Jax, by the way, which is super great. And also the Bard chosen in our shop. So right now, it probably makes actually a lot of sense to pick up the Bard chosen here. And the reason being is because right now, sure, we do have a Jax in our shop, but the Bard can actually item hold for our Jax. And then as we slowly find the Jaxes, then we can consider trying to find it. We do actually send the Nashers here as well, so we just get a little bit more tempo on our board. And even though we do want to be playing around this Jax here, and we do have the great components for it, it's very possible we can still flex into something like TF or something like Ahri even in this spot. Zhonya's Ahri is not ideal, but Zhonya's on TF is actually quite interestingly pretty strong. Vampirism in the middle here, you can see he just auto takes it. It's probably like one of the best silver augments you could take here, especially if he's thinking about Jax. So we're not going to roll too deep on here just because we already have a decent enough board. We are playing Heartsteel, so we do want to lose. So again, we're trying to pump the economy into our board, trying to pump the resources in. And then a lot of people in this spot will probably be slow rolling on 6 trying to find the Jaxes. And again, I don't exactly remember what he does here just to, you know, iterate the point here, but a lot of people again would probably be slow rolling on 6. I'm going to fast forward again because there's not too much to talk about, because the interesting parts are really the mid game and the late game and the way that he approaches the Jax reroll line. So fast forwarding here a little bit, he does win here, it's fine. I mean, Heartsteel, it is what it is. Like, you're just trying to, you know, try to tempo yourself a little bit. Gets the locket out of the stationary support. So already our board is looking pretty fucking solid for stage 3. It's very still likely that you could play standard in this spot, but it's not something that I would fully recommend, because even though a lot of the itemizations were supposed to be very flexible, BIS is still BIS, and you know, if you don't have the exact perfect BIS, sometimes it can feel a little awkward about what you're trying to play around. Again, no rods or tiers here, which really fucking sucks. So we don't actually have our Jax items just yet, so just getting a random belt here, it sounds fine enough to me. So in this spot, by the way, we are level 6, right? We're level 6 and we're thinking we want to play Jax, but in case you haven't noticed, we are very far from the pivot. We are actually incredibly far. We have a Jax and a Gnar, and we have a set on our board, and that's it. So we are so far away from the pivot that I think Robovan is starting to think like, hey, like, I do want to play Jax. I really want this on my board, but I don't even have JG yet. I don't have Hodge yet. So if I were to pivot into Jax with only a 1-item Jax with the Zhonya's and that's it, it sounds like a terrible time. So instead of trying to slow roll and start thinking about the Jax, maybe we're still trying to keep the option open, excuse me, of potentially still playing into Lux. Sorry, I'm gonna take a little bit of water, by the way. In case you didn't know, I like streamed like the KDA Cup like day 2, and then like I started like doing this shit. I'm like talked out. I was talking like so much because like this Raptor guy, this fucking I was streaming like KDA Cup with Raptor and like Sub-Zero, and like they, you know, they have some takes, I have some takes. We're gonna argue, like it is what it is. But it was very fun stream, very fun time having them on the stream. So I mean, it is what it is, but that's why my throat is a little tired, or I'm a little, you know, spoken out, if you will. But in case you didn't notice, by the way, Robovan pumped level, which is not something I think a lot of people would do. He actually decides to pump level here because he's so far away from the pivot that he decides to pump level and then see where it takes him. So I think that's also really, really interesting. He pumps level to pre-level to 7 here, finds the set 2, decides to sell the Chosen Bard, and then starts to decide to roll here. Rolls a very finite amount, not too much, not trying to break 50 here, but we are still trying to find the Jax Chosen. We're still trying to figure out like what units that we can play around, but we are also looking for things like Lux, looking for things like whatever. We actually pick up the Vex Chosen here, which is kind of interesting. I think he picks up the Vex Chosen here because, again, he's still so far away from Jax. So he's going to pick up the Vex Chosen here. He's just going to play this board for now. Still keeping Heartsteel in, by the way. We're going to keep Heartsteel in for quite a long time here because we are on a win streak. We do get the Hodge, which is great. We have Nashers and Zhonya's, but again, we don't have a triple item Jax yet, and we're only on 1 Jax. So it's really, really hard to justify rolling and looking for the Jax and pivoting into a Jax headliner when our board would be super duper weak. It would be weaker than this current alternative that we have, which is the Vex 2, amongst other things. So anyways, Force 2 augments coming up, Ascension, Not Today, and Capricious Forge. All of these are not terrific. Not today, especially, like, not today can be good on Jax. The only issue is that GA and Zhonya's doesn't make a lot of sense. They both have the same function, so it doesn't make sense to slap both of them onto the unit, even though Jax likes both items, just not together. Ascension doesn't really make a lot of sense. Jax likes to end fights very quickly, so it's not the best ideal, and Capricious isn't that great either. So nothing here really screams like great. Stationary support can be okay, but you can definitely low roll your stationary support here, especially if you get something like, I don't know, like a second locket. It would be really, really awkward to play around. Not much else here really screams like I have to take this no matter what. 3 User Crowd seems fine to me, but he actually decides to go for long distance pals. This is an augment that used to be super turbo broken back in previous sets, but it just kept getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, and now we rarely see people ever take long distance pals. It's not that terrific of an augment, but again, comparing his other choices, he didn't really have that much, like that many things that were better. So already we are thinking about long distance pals, and the reason why long distance pals is actually kind of acceptable in this situation is because we do know we're playing Jax. Again, even though we're so far away from the pivot, we are still thinking about playing Jax here, and we can long LDP between Lux and Jax, which is pretty nice. So here we are still on a win streak, by the way, and I think Robin Van's plan here is just to keep playing this board until we lose, and then once we lose or we cash out, then we will then decide to pivot out and then go into Jax. And with this much money, sure, the odds of finding 2 costs are 5% less. Our odds for finding 3 costs have gone up, and they're actually equal. This means that we are going to very likely be able to 3-star Lux and Jax roughly within the same time frame. So again, very interesting approach to playing around this Jax reroll line, and it's so interesting. This is not something that I would see a lot of people doing. Yeah, he's playing Jax, but he's keeping the line open until it makes sense, right? He's not pivoting immediately as soon as it's 4-1, as soon as it's 3-2, or whatever. He's keeping his options open, playing his strongest board until it makes sense to pivot out, which is super, super nice. Gets the rod, which is super great. Now we are JJ Hodge. Zhonya's finally at 4-5. We finally have BIS Jax, and it took us until 4-5 to hit BIS Jax, and now we sell the Vex and we start rolling here. We start finding the EDM units, start finding different things like the Lux Chosen, but it's probably not best to take it, but you should definitely take it and then sell it, in my opinion. Or I guess he's just gonna hold on to it. Very interesting. So he actually decides to hold on to the Lux here, which I don't remember him doing. I thought he would buy and sell it just because of the way the headliners work, but surprisingly enough, he actually holds on to it. And I don't know if he decides to keep the headliner or not. I actually don't know what his headliner is this game. My guess is that he actually might just hold on to it at this point, just because he's 5 Luxes. Nope, he sold it. So he sold it, and he's gonna look for the Jax Chosen. So I happen to misspeak. But anyways, finds the Jax Chosen, which is super great. Little awkward though, because we are like our Jax 1 does have the items that our Lux would have had, so it's a little awkward to say, but the naturally goes onto the Lux here, which makes a decent amount of sense here. And sure, our board is a little awkward, but with so much economy, it shouldn't take too long for us to find the Jax 3 and the Lux 3. It shouldn't, you know, we should be okay. But again, we are losing a lot, and again, we actually, surprisingly enough, have kept Heartsteel in, so it looks like we're going for another cash out before we decide to fully pivot out into the EDM line. So you can see Robin Van rolls a little deeper than normal. He does roll down to 40 instead of 50, probably just because normally at Raptors you are getting economy anyway, so there's no reason to like not roll down to 50 and just see what you hit. Still was able to make 50, which is super fine. Finds another Quick Love, which is okay. I'm going to assume that's for Lux. Keeps rolling down here trying to find the Jax 3, but he's actually still really far off, but finds the Lux here, which is super great. Gets the Hodge onto the Lux here. I don't know if that was our best item. Maybe Blue Buff was slightly better, but regardless, still fine. Still getting that LDP value here, even though we do have a Chosen Jax as well as our Jax, I believe it's a Jax 2 at this point, that has the JJ Hodge and the Zhonya. So our board is still not the best, but I love, by the way, he's sampling the Lux. Like, he's sampling the Lux instead of sampling the Jax here. And I think a lot of people will be sampling the Jax because they sort of like monkey brain, like they don't like really think too much about their position, but he's sampling the Lux here because it makes the most sense, because the Lux damage is going to be more impactful than this Jax damage. So I actually like this a lot. You might also notice Lux position at C2 instead of the quote-unquote traditional D1. If you don't know about this text, simply positioning Lux in this hex allows you to have the Lux jump into the back whenever you are sampling the Jax. But you might also notice he is sampling the Jax first and then switching it to the Lux depending on the matchup. I love that a lot. And a lot of people actually, especially at higher elo, sort of realize that, hey, if you are playing Lux 3 and Jax 3, you can switch between both. You have the liberty to switch between both and sample the Lux in case you're playing something like Ahri, where against Ahri, you kind of want to snipe that backline immediately, or maybe you're playing into Jax, you're playing into something like AD Melee, something like the Zeds or the Viegos or whatnot. So again, really, really smart decision making here. I love this a lot. He's just switching between sampling depending on the matchups, and so far it's been super great. He also, I think a part of it is also because he's also trying to sample the jacks here, because he samples at the beginning in case he forgets to sample it, in case like he like barely runs out of time before like he switches out. But you can see the HP lobby, by the way, super close. 4 HP, 5 HP, 6 HP, 11, and it's 5-4, by the way, and we're still jacks 2. So it's quite insane, by the way, that we have survived this long with jacks 2. And we're still chilling. We still have 2 jaxes on our board, by the way. We are still 2 jaxes off. So, again, most people, when you're thinking about 2-cost reroll, you're thinking about hitting by like 4-2. Right? The standard quote-unquote tempo is 4-2. Here, we hit the jax pair, and we are literally like 1 life. So, the MF here, perfectly fine. The jax 3 here. We are actually playing 6 units out of 7, so it's a very awkward position to be in. But hopefully, this will be enough. He samples the jax instead here, which is super great. Decides that it is definitely more impactful than trying to snipe the Ezreal with the Lux lasers. I fully agree, especially because we're now Jax 3 with Gigabyss, and now it looks like we are going to start winning out. Getting the cutscene as well. This is the Prestige Yasuo Chibi, by the way, in case you want to spend like $500-$600, whatever the fuck this thing comes out, which, by the way, is so expensive. But I mean, I understand there's definitely a market for, you know, people who want that shit, who want to spend that much money on it. I mean, it is what it is. TFT's got to get money somehow, right? But regardless, nonetheless, 5 EDM, our board is finally online. We finally got our board, like, mostly online, actually. It's not even fully online. We have 2 bards on our board because we have nothing better. And now we're here. So this is great. So now we're finally, like, quote-unquote stable, but, like, albeit we are 5 HP, so 1 bad fight RNG can, like, ruin it for us. But with Zhonya's on Jax, as you may or may not know, it enables this comp so greatly that, like, it's almost like an auto win with Jax. Zhonya's plus Jax is just like a free top 2, top 3. So obviously we are in a really good spot here, especially with the Lux 3 as well. We got a little bit of gold here, get an item anvil, probably just a Lux item, probably Rabadons is probably fine. Redemption makes a lot of sense as well. Oh, sorry, I didn't see we were 3 item Lux. So Redemption makes a ton of sense, and we are surprisingly enough moving the tank items onto the Zac 2 and then selling the set, which I don't know if I fully agree with. Just because a set 2 and Zac 2, sure, the items are on set 2. It's a little less ideal, but nonetheless, now you've downgraded to a set 1. So I don't know if I fully agree with this. And also, by the way, we pivoted back into Heartsteel once again, which is really surprising. Pivoting back into Heartsteel here, trying to get some more juice, which is a little surprising to see, just because I don't see how we'll be able to cash out in time. There's maybe 2 or 3 fights left, so yeah, switching it back into Jazz here makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe it was the strongest board. I didn't get the best of looks. But again, chilling here. It is now a secured top 4. And if you've actually been paying attention to the other boards inside of the lobby here, nobody really wins against us. Once we have hit everything and we are finally online, yes, we are 1 HP. It's very scary, but nobody can really beat our board. We're actually super capped out in Jax here. We are playing the Jazz variation, so we are trying to just boost as many stats as we can into the Jax. This guy is quite scary, though, Scooby-Doo with 6 8-bit. So this is the only guy that's actually posing a bit of a threat against us. But nonetheless, securing a top 3 from the spot that we were at earlier when we were like hard forcing Jax, and a lot of people who would have been playing this position would have been stuck at level 6, just re-rolling and not hitting, and then blaming Mortdog. I mean, this was, in my opinion, a very, very fantastically well played game, and we actually win against the Ghost here. Super nice, and it is a top 2. So, already, very fantastic game. I was very impressed watching this in the way that Rob Van approached it. He's really stretching out his economy and interest, trying to make sure that he can pivot into the board, 1, when it makes sense, but 2, sure, he hit so late, but he was stretching out his economy interest as much as possible, and also pumping resources into his board through other means like Heartsteel, and being able to cap out in such a way that secured him a very, very impressive top 2. This is, by the way, in case you can't tell by the way that I'm talking here, is probably going to be the last fight. 6 8-bit is absolutely disgusting, especially on Riven 3, and it is a second nonetheless from Robovan. But I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys have learned something. So until next time, we are going to be covering a game from day 2 tomorrow, but I will see you guys then. And until then, take care, guys, and happy climbing.